Before I start, thank you Somnath ji for your kind words and sharing insights on India's economic growth and for kicking off IBC 2025. I hope all of you are as excited as I am for introducing the first session of the day. It is an honor for me to introduce someone who quite literally helps the world keeps moving, Mr. Raj Subramaniam, President and CEO of FedEx. He has spent He has spent over 3 decades shaping how we move goods, data, and dreams across the globe. In 2023, he received the Pravasi Bharatiya Samman, the highest civilian award presented by the President of India to members for his remarkable impact both in India and abroad. And while now he now leads the world's most iconic companies, Raj often jokes he once thought he had a better shot at becoming a professional cricketer than a Fortune 500 CEO. It is a reminder of how far vision, dedication, and quiet confidence can take you. Please join me in welcoming Raj Subramaniam.
Thank you.
Our second speaker is Mr. M.R. Rangaswami. It is my pleasure to welcome our second speaker, a pioneering investor, entrepreneur, and philanthropist who helped shape the early days of Silicon Valley. He co-founded Sandhill Group, one of the Valley's first angel investment funds, and later launched the Corporate Eco Forum to bring global 500 companies together around sustainability. Through Indiaspora, he then united Indian origin leaders across politics, business, and the arts to turn success into collective impact. He often says his smartest investment was buying Sandhill.com for just $20. And outside the boardroom, you're likely to find him sharing snorkeling stories or indulging in a comforting bowl of curd rice. Put your hands together for M.R. Rangaswamy. And last but definitely not the least, Kellogg's very own professor, Mohanbir Sahni, Associate Dean, one of the world's leading voices on marketing, innovation, and digital strategy. And most importantly, IBC's biggest cheerleader. His work has shaped Fortune 500 firms, top startups, and countless student lives, known for turning complex ideas into memorable insights. He is as quotable in the classroom as he is influential in the boardroom. Professor Sahni, over to you.
Thank you. Oh, welcome, Raj. Welcome, MR. It's wonderful to kick off with you. So, expectations are high. Okay? No pressure. But Raj, let me begin with you. We all come from very humble beginnings, right? We started out and we all proverbially came with $5 or $500 in one suitcase to this country. So walk us through your journey and how you sort of...
$2 bill. That's what I came in.
That's what. And he still has it.
That's all the money I had when I walked in. So since you brought it up.
So tell us about your journey, from where you and I both started out at IIT, and to where you are today.
Well, that's a long journey, but I'll be, I think the story that...
You have to do it in 24 hours.
Yes.
Next day.
Yeah. We do everything overnight. We get it by 10:30. I think the story is similar to a lot of us, who have moved here, especially in the 80s. It was basically, there was no such thing as Google or any such thing. And I got admission to chemical engineering at that point into Syracuse and Florida, in University of Florida, and I looked at the ranking. That's all I had, and Syracuse was ranked like 17, and Florida was ranked 18. So I picked Syracuse, and I remember going to the Counsel General's office there, and she said, "It's going to be cold, young man." I said, "Yeah." The first day was 70 degrees, and I was already freezing. So that was my advent into America. And the second thing, and no disrespect to the academics here, but I walked into my advisor's office, and he looks at my name and said, "How old were you before you could spell your name?" and then he says, "How are things in Bangkok?" I thought that was a trick question, but then I realized there was not much knowledge about India at that time. So how things have changed.
Yeah,
And so I'll just tell you one more story and I'll stop because, the other thing was trying to get a job. And I had gone to, by the time got an MBA from University of Texas at Austin. And we were in 1991 and the recession. And at that point, I had enough, qualifications to get through the first interview, and I got to the second interview. It was always no go. I mean, many interviews. I think I had 200 or 300 applications, and it was basically because I didn't have a green card. The minute they figured out that you didn't have a green card, there were so many people graduating at that point without jobs that it was gone. So I already graduated in June, no job, no money, and here it was August, and somehow. Well, actually, so I walked in my apartment. My roommate was on the phone, and he said, "I can't do that. I'm sorry." And he hangs up the phone. I said, "What happened?" He said, "FedEx is coming to campus." He had already decided to go back to India, and so I said, "Give me the number, please." So I called over there, and I said, "You just talk to my roommate.
I'll take his job."
I'm here. So he said, "Fax me the resume." I did, and then he said, "Okay, come for the interview." So I went to the campus interview. By the time, of course, my euphoria has already come back down again because, this has happened to me before. So I walk into the door, and those two gentlemen, was sitting there, and they said, I didn't say, this is what not to do, folks. I didn't say good morning. I didn't say hello. I said, I don't have a green card.
Let's get this out of the way.
I don't want to waste your time or my time if that's going to be a problem. You can sense my level of frustration at this point. And they look at me and said, "Son, let's first figure out whether you have what it takes to do a job at FedEx. And then we'll worry about the paperwork." And then, luckily, I was given an opportunity to join that company as the lowest level possible in FedEx.
Fantastic. What a wonderful story. MR, you've gone through some really interesting twists and turns and, come to a very unique place. What you do is unique. And I said there is nobody on this planet that MR does not know or they don't know. If you look up the word networking in a dictionary, it says MR Rangaswami.
That's right.
That's what
that is true.
So tell us about your first life and your second life and, and how you exude so much passion about what you do today.
Thank you. Again, I had $8, Raj.
Okay, so you got 4 times mine.
4 times. But I had the unique experience when I came in '76. I had to find my brother's friend's friend who lived in New Jersey to come pick me up at JFK, right? And I go, how do I know this guy? How does he know me, right? You get out of JFK and you have to meet this guy. I had $8. Mm-hmm. So how the hell, if he doesn't meet me, what happens? Right? $8 is gone. Mm-hmm. So that's how I started. But another incident I want to tell you before I come into the other place is what happened to me in the U.S. How many of you know Greyhound buses? I guess not this audience, just a few of us here.
Yes.
So I had to take a Greyhound bus to go to college, right? And my sister-in-law had packed pots and pans and Indian spices for me. And I end up in Cleveland, and he opens the compartment, and it's gone, right? Somebody had stolen my box. So I go to campus, and I tell my host family, and this is when I saw the warmth of America. My host family immediately went to Kmart, bought everything, pots and pans and everything the next day and brought it over, right? That was what the America I was used to when I came. And that still is in my heart. The welcoming nature of this country, right? They didn't give me spices, though. Didn't know what spices was.
Kmart doesn't.
Kmart doesn't have spices. Now they do, probably. Now Costco has everything.
But now there's
right?
no Kmart.
Yeah, now there's no Kmart. And then my defining moment, like Raj was saying, getting a job, right? I graduated in Ohio. There were no jobs, and this was in 89, 90. So I had to go to Texas because everyone said jobs are in Texas. So I go there, and I find a job in a day, right? Working in a manufacturing plant after doing an MBA. That was like a big come down, And I was there for a couple of years. I went for training. And one of the guys goes, "Tell me about yourself." I say, "I have an MBA. I use computers." He says, "What the hell are you doing here? You should go to Silicon Valley." And that was my accidental journey to get to Silicon Valley, was a consultant telling me, get out of Houston and go to Silicon Valley. And I applied to many different companies, and one was crazy enough to hire me, and that's how I got to Silicon Valley. But Silicon Valley gave me, 2 startups, with both of them failed. Third time I got lucky, so don't think any one of you who goes to Silicon Valley will hit it right the first time, okay? It took 3 tries, and some people it could take more tries. But having kind of done the third one and taken an exit, my passion, I felt, was to build networks, and that's how I got into this whole thing. Was I didn't need a job. I still don't have a job after 28 years of quitting the tech industry, but I was an angel investor, and that gave me the opportunity to do what I want. And building networks is what I wanted to do, so I built a network of CEOs in the software industry. And this is when I kind of got into philanthropy by accident, because when I started the program, everyone said, this is a great event, but I won't show up, because there were so many conferences for CEOs. So then I said, on the whim of the moment, I said, let me make this one where all the money, all the surplus gets given to charity. It was an instant success, because everybody paid $10,000 to be a member. We gave all the money that was a surplus after doing the events to nonprofits. And that felt really good. And that's what got me on the track to give back more. That was more gratifying than having a home run on NASDAQ, right? That's how I got into my first network. And the second one was Corporate Eco Forum. And this was because I have 2 young daughters, and someone said, you got to be a good role model for these kids. You can't say you're a tech entrepreneur. That's not good enough, right? So you got to do something in green. And that's how I started that network. I didn't know anything about sustainability, but talked to 50 Fortune 500 executives and started that network. And that now has 90 companies, 6.3 trillion in combined revenues, doing a lot of work around climate mitigation and so forth. And then 13 years ago, my newest network was Indiaspora, and Raj is part of that. He's one of our Founder Circle members. And this is to get the entire community together, right? So it was doctors, lawyers, CEOs, academics, authors, all to come together to be a force for good. Because if you look at the global diaspora, there are 30 million of us who live outside of India. 30 million, out of which 5 million of us live here in the US. This is the most successful and impactful diaspora in the world. And so we need to do our job giving back, both to the country we live in, which is the US, and also to India. And that was the formation of Indiaspora.
Fantastic. What wonderful journeys in both cases. Now, Raj, let us now go to the other extreme, where you sit at the top of one of the leading companies, in the world. And what we are observing is that people who came in at our time are now rising to the top of the corporate world. And we see, by some measure, a disproportionate number of Indian CEOs, and they've done very well. So is there a secret sauce? And what does it take to lead a company like FedEx? And do you bring some of the assets of whatever it is, the culture or whatever, to the job that you do?
Well, this is an excellent question. I think if you look back, and a lot of these CEOs are in Silicon Valley, in the tech world, and then there are a few of us who are in the non-tech sector as well.
Hey, you're a tech company.
Well, so I was going to come. We are evolving from a supply chain company to a supply chain company and a supply chain technology company. So that's coming, but. The journey, and I've thought about it, and I don't have a really good answer, but firstly, there was a lot of people who came in the 80s, and in 34, if you think about a lot of, highly qualified folks came over, and then in 30 or 40 years, by force of gravity, they are now in different, higher levels in different organizations around this country. And this is, as Amar said, is a truly an American success story. And I don't think this has happened in any other country in the world. And it is just the meritocracy that is this country.
Very interesting.
That people can come from nothing and then really grow up in this country and become something. So that's one. The second, of course, is technology being a much different play now than it was 30 or 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. And a lot of folks who have adapting technology have succeeded. But I think there's even a more basic point, is that the world is full of ambiguity. The world is full of ambiguity. There is no, if people think in binary terms of 0 and 1, then it's very, very difficult. There are infinite numbers between 0 and 1. And I think when we grew up in an environment where resources are constrained and we had to deal with a lot of ambiguity going up, that you're comfortable in your mindset in dealing with uncertainties and focusing on the things that you can control. And I think there is probably an element of that in a lot of these successes, because the world is, a lot of people look to simplify things. And in a complex world, sometimes you oversimplify and you lose the essence of what you're dealing with. You have to deal with complexity. And that's, unfortunately, the real world. And so people who can deal with complexity actually thrive. And so maybe there is some element of that as well in that process.
Yeah. So, MR, your perspective on this, because you're seeing this on a broader lens of sort of diasporic success, and what do you attribute it to?
Yeah, now there's 16 CEOs in the Fortune 500 like Raj, right? So he has company there. But I've talked to many of them, and what I find is that 3 or 4 other characteristics I'm sure Raj will agree with. One is the Indian family values. When you look at Indians in India, it was always you had to study, right? And you had to go to IIT or you had to go to IIM or all this stuff. So that is one thing we came with from India. The second thing is family values itself. Our families tend to be together. They're not separate families. They're not divorces are not that much in common and so forth. So I think it gives a lot of stability to the family itself. And the third thing, I think ambiguity is definitely one of them. Jugad and ambiguity and all that stuff is definitely another one. And the fourth one is just, working hard. I think Indians who come to the U.S. work really hard. And I think that also is something that happens, I think. So it's a multitude of these factors that have resulted in...
See, something, MR, you and I have talked about in the past, and we worked on this report together, that the diaspora has been obviously very successful in a corporate world and many other walks of life. But we probably need to do a better job, A, articulating that, but B, also sort of now giving back and coming together as a collective and influential voice, which is the core mission of what you want to do. So tell us how the diaspora could do more and have more, collective impact as opposed to individual impact.
Definitely. And we did a recent report which you, Mohan, were part of the steering committee. Raj, you helped us launch it in Washington, D.C., where we said we worked with BCG to kind of look at the impact, the overall impact our 5 million people make in the U.S. For example, we are 1.5% of the population. People like us pay 6% of the taxes. I think, Raj, you pay a little bit more than us.
He pays 6% of taxes himself.
We have 22,000 academics like Mohan here, right? 22,000. They teach 3 to 5 million college students. Okay, we have 75,000 doctors. They treat 30 million Americans a year. This is the collective impact our community has made, right? And this community in the U.S., we give between $1.5 and $2 billion to philanthropy every year. Okay, these are big numbers that we haven't told people. So go look at this report and disseminate this report. So that's the collective impact that we bring. But I think we also can use that to have influence, both in politics. Now we are 1.5% of the U.S. Congress. There's 6 people in the House of Representatives. They call themselves the Samosa Caucus, right? And Raja Krishnamurthy, who's from Chicago, is the one who coined it. So I think our influence in politics is growing, our influence across different sectors. For example, in climate change, 3 or 4 of the leading NGOs, the CEOs are Indian. So you look anywhere and everywhere, you'll see Indians. So Indiaspora's role is to channel this really as a force for good, to talk about the good things we can do. For example, Raj, you did so much for us during COVID.
Yeah.
FedEx was one of the leading organizations. Indiaspora also in 1 month collected $15 million for relief in India. Right? These are the kinds of things that the community can do to show American people and society that we can step up.
So let me just make it come alive a little bit in that COVID situation. So it's April 2021. It was the worst time in India at that time from a COVID perspective. So it was like literally ramping up.
Yeah.
And in 3-4 days, so on a Saturday morning, Arvind Krishna of IBM called me. And we were like, we need to do something. And so literally we started dialing that afternoon. And Sunday morning on Zoom call at 11 o'clock, there were probably 60 of the Fortune 100 CEOs on a Zoom call. And the convening power was unbelievable. I was actually shocked. I haven't seen that kind of gathering in that kind of time. It also made me realize in hindsight that a lot of the company's crown jewels are in India. And a lot of talent is in India. So we got together and we had the US government folks and Indian government folks, and it's like what was required at that time: oxygen. It was oxygen. It was a need of the hour. Was oxygen concentrators. So a lot of people said we'll donate money, this, that, and the other things, started locating oxygen all over the world. The next question was who's going to move it? So I'm like, okay.
I know a little bit of that.
That would be me, most likely. And so it started coming from all over the world, and we had like 40 flights a week into India. We still have more now. But so we started moving oxygen into India at that point. I remember a call I got that Friday evening, then that next Friday evening, from this lady who I didn't know how she got my number. She told me, my father is dying in Hyderabad, and I have an oxygen concentrator. Can you get it to him? And I'm like, how in the world am I going to deal with that? And then in about 12 hours, we had a process set up where we could bring in an oxygen concentrator to one of the FedEx office stores, and then we could get it over. So we moved over 100,000 oxygen concentrators in that time frame. And that's the kind of, from our point, thank you. Our philosophy is simple from a giving back perspective. If your neighbor's house is on fire and you're the one with the fire hose, you run to help. That's just as simple as that.
Yeah, that's a fascinating story. Now let me focus a little bit on FedEx as a company. And, we live in a time where one of the biggest challenges that CEOs are facing today is uncertainty around where I locate my supply chains, how I manage my logistics, and of course with the uncertainty around tariffs, where are we going to move things from where to where. So that uncertainty both is a challenge and an opportunity for FedEx. So how are you looking at this whole supply chain resiliency and all the decoupling of the economies with China and so on? How does that affect FedEx business?
Well, I think first of all, prior to COVID and let's say in 2019, if I had uttered the word supply chain in this audience, you'd have probably politely escorted me out of the room because nobody cared. But ever since COVID, it seems
you've become sexy now.
It's become a quote unquote a sexy topic. So we have changed our mission to make supply chains smarter for everyone. That's what we are about. We obviously, when we think about what FedEx has built over the last 52 years, this is very difficult to do. It's the network, meaning you can pick up anything from any one part of the world and get it to any other part of the world in a very short time period. That is what a network is. When you talk about a network for a telephone, you understand what it is. You pick up the phone and call anybody in the world. That's moving bits and bytes. Moving atoms is a lot harder. And people take that for granted, actually. There are only 2 or 3 companies who actually can do that. So we are a referendum on high-value supply chains every single day. I realized about 5-6 years ago that we were sitting on an enormous amount of data, more importantly, supply chain insights that's in our system every day. We move $2 trillion worth of commerce through our system. We connect 3 million shippers to about 225 million consumers every single day. And so we had begun this journey of organizing our data and creating the right architecture, right engineering. We didn't know what was coming next, but it was 2020, we started this journey. And we have built a digital twin of FedEx. In the meanwhile, along came AI. And so suddenly, these forces are now working together. And so think about the tariff environment that we are now talking about. From every country to every other country, for every commodity, we have the information. We need it to move our packages every single day because that's our But now think about it another way. Now that has become a platform that people can plug into, and we will have solutions for customers now to play and to make this, especially in the friction-full world. Basic algebra is not good enough. You need advanced calculus, and we can do advanced calculus. And this is where I think with the physical network that we have that connects the world, as supply chain patterns change. India is a classic example, or CG just talked about it. Our ambition is to double in 3 years. I know the Indian GDP is doubled in 2030, or is 2030. But in this last year, we've grown more than 51%. We launched new flights full day one. And suddenly we're connecting new nodes in the world, like Bangalore, for example, to the world, and the world to that. We just need to connect it to a network, and the whole world is lit up for that market. So that's what the advantage that we have, scale advantages on the physical, and of course the incredible advantage that we have with the data and the supply chain insights that we have in making sure that our customer supply chains get smarter every single day.
So, I'll metaphorically take this idea of building connections and bridges between the US and India and pose to you the question, MR, that how can now this US-India connection be facilitated, enhanced by diaspora? It's already happening, but what's next in terms of diasporic impact on India's growth story?
So the US can really make the biggest impact on India because the overall diaspora last year remitted $120 billion to India, right? That's a big number, but a lot of that came from Gulf countries where people send money to their families.
Yeah.
But the US component of that was $26 billion. And the US money is not going to feed families. The US money is going to buy real estate, invest in angel deals with startups, and in the stock market in India, right? So this money, this $26 billion is fueling money in India on investments. So that's a tangible way to look at what the US diaspora is doing with India, right? But on the intangible side, whenever a Prime Minister of India, like Prime Minister Modi, comes here, we do dialogues on the sidelines because the diaspora is very influential in that regard. Same thing when presidents go from here to India, we accompany them and we do conversations, people-to-people conversations. And that can impact a lot as well. It's not just government-to-government dialogue, but when people like Raj talk to people in India, it makes a big difference than just talking government to government, right? So I think the US-India corridor, again, in the report we did, we have a whole section on that. But I think the reports, how many people read reports? You've said that, Mohan. So we made
That's why you made a comedy.
Yeah, we made a comedy, guys. So you guys can go into YouTube, look for I'm Indian American. And Rajiv Satyal is the guy who is a comic we hired. It's on the Indiaspora channel. I'm an Indian American, and you'll see a funny way how we took all these statistics and were able to translate. And it's a viral hit.
I haven't seen it yet. I got to check on it.
We got over 1 million views of that video. Yeah. But, that's the kind of stuff, the power the community has. We even have good comedians, right? So it helps. So I think the diaspora is helping tangibly both with money, but also with the soft power of the community. And the same thing with India. India is influencing the US, right? One of the things in the report, fun fact, that 36,000 yoga studios in the US. More than India, I think. 30. Can you imagine the soft power of that? Yoga studios, right? So there's so many things like that.
And we haven't even gotten started with Ayurveda and
right,
a bunch of other...
all the other stuff.
Before they patent it here, we should actually...
Let's bring cricket.
And cricket is happening too. And in fact, I want to extend a welcome to all of you. June 12th through 15th, the Major League Cricket will be held in San Francisco in my hometown. And,
okay, I'm coming.
So, yeah, please. Absolutely. And we will have all the teams from across the country, the 6 teams playing for a whole 4 days of cricket at the Oakland Coliseum. Because all the teams there are gone. It's lying empty. And the cricket guys, again, using Jugaad, figured out a configuration where there can actually be a cricket match held in a football stadium.
Last year when it was inaugurated, May, Ross Perot Jr. took me on a helicopter to the stadium. This is a baseball stadium, and it was like half baseball stadium and half was being converted to cricket stadium. And by July, they launched it. It was amazing to see. And
even in the World Cup, they put up a temporary stadium
in New York
overnight. But
I'm thrilled that from FedEx is now sponsoring the IPL. We are in the back, so it's a CSK shirt. So it's great to see Dhoni walking out with FedEx in the back.
CSK is the bottom of the table.
It's okay. It's okay. It's not done yet. I talked to Dhoni on Thursday. He said he's going to make it happen.
That's fantastic. But more seriously, when you look at India now as a market, you talked about sort of the growth that you're having there now. Look at it a little bit long term with all the statistics we heard about, the GDP growth and so on. What are the opportunities and challenges for FedEx? Because there is also a lot of local competition and a lot of local jugaad. I remember the delivery guys telling me, he says, I can get to this package delivered faster because my mapping says, wrong side go, and then you jump over the fence, and that's not in Google Maps, but the FedEx person has to take legal turns. So we are able to deliver faster. By the way, you didn't hear this from me, but anyway, because they're a public company now. But anyway, so it's a challenging market too. So talk to us about India as a market.
Well, let's do, so let's start there. Delivery, we invested in delivery. And so they are our partner now in India in delivering map package. Now, our focus, just to be clear, is India in and India out. So nobody can do that. It's intra-India is a different kettle of fish. And the reality is India represents about 2.8% of manufacturing, global manufacturing. China represents 28%.
Wow.
So there is a 10x difference. And I've told this to the Prime Minister too. With this diversification, again, as the CG talked about, of supply chains coming, even if you get 10% of the volume that's in China today, India doubles. It's just pure math. And so I think the work that India has to do is really not 10% more, but 100% more to get that 10%. And there's a lot of opportunities because just saw Apple ship $2 billion worth of iPhones out of India last week. We move a lot of smartphones for Apple from India now, and these things are happening as we speak. But from a physical and even, as I call the non-tariff barriers, a lot of things can be done to make this process as smooth as we possibly can. And whether it's the airport infrastructure, and when you think about airport infrastructure, when you build new airports, people think we are, quote unquote, a courier company. That's not what we are. We move high-value goods to the, this is the highest value of the supply chain ecosystem. So they need to be considering in the design phase, what is it going to take to move these kind of things in sophisticated infrastructure? So I said, we're not in the intra-India business yet, because right now the value of the commodities that move through the system is quite low. But as the value of the manufacturing goes up and the value of the goods go up, there needs to be a very sophisticated distribution system in India, not the one jumping over the fence to go over the pipe to give it. That's not what we're talking about.
Or the blinkets.
So this is going. So there is going to be a time that's coming in the near future where there's going to be much more of a significant sophistication level of distribution systems go up, especially as the value of the goods being. So I'm very bullish on India. We are bullish from a pure business perspective. We have grown more than 50% this year. We expect to double in 3 years. We are very bullish on our talent in India. We are establishing new capability communities all over, so that's going to come. And we're also very excited about innovation in India. We're investing in startups in India right now so that they actually can help with our supply chain technology journey. And there are a lot of plug and plays into our platform that we can bring in. So this is a very exciting time, and I'm in the market once in 4 or 5 months, and I'm personally guiding this journey because I'm committed to this, and this is great opportunity for the country and of course for FedEx.
So, MR, I want to double click a little bit on the sort of tech aspect of the Indian diaspora. So obviously there's a lot of Indian origin founders that are driving the technology innovation, not only big tech, but the startup companies. And similarly in India, there's a lot of startup activity. Right? How can these two ecosystems get better connected? And I know that you've been somewhat critical of some of the kind of startup activity that's happening in India, because we now need to go into deep tech, we need to go deeper into products, into AI. How do we bring these two ecosystems together in a more meaningful way?
Well, it's a great question. Again, a couple of things, right? In Silicon Valley, when I moved in there, 82, we were 10,000 Indian Americans. Right? 40 years later, it's 400,000. So we've grown 40 times in 40 years in terms of just sheer talent in the IT sector, right? And that sector can play a really good role in many ways, right? One is mentoring startups in India. One is a lot of those companies have back offices in India from a technology point of view. Money is going from the venture capital system in Silicon Valley to India. So there's a lot of this is already happening in terms of the connections between the two. I think what needs to happen on the Indian side, and I know recently there have been a lot of critical statements made about Indian startups themselves, whether they're just copycats to the US or are they really getting into deep tech. I think that's the area that we have to break through on the Indian side is, can they create the next Google or the next Uber
right.
or the next OpenAI? Right? That's still an open question because the same talent comes to the US and is able to do it, right? You're going to hear from Arvind later today for Perplexity, right?
Why would that have been built in India?
Exactly. So that still is the open question that India as a country needs to address. I mean, we can only inspire them by showing examples of how we do it in the US, right? And even now in the US, there's 72 unicorns created by Indian Americans in the US. They employ 88,000 people here. So all that is happening in the US. Yeah. Can that be replicated? How can we help them? We are helping them, but ultimately it's up to the Indians in India to figure that out, right?
I remember talking to an Israeli friend. He says, you know what our problem is? We build great products, we can't scale the companies. So you guys do great scale, but you can't do products.
Yeah.
You have services companies that have scaled.
But let me touch upon one more thing, if I might. I think immigration is an issue of the day, right?
Yeah.
All over the world, not just in the US, but Indian students are not going to most countries now. Even UK and Canada and Australia are cutting down both on number of students, but also finding employment after they get their degrees, right? So India needs to also, I think, look at new models of exporting labor and human capital. So that's an area that's ripe for opportunities. All of the Western countries in the OECD countries are all declining in population. And I call this the geriatric opportunity, right? All these countries have old people, not many young people. They need doctors, nurses, caretakers. Yeah. So maybe India needs to really create an economy where they certify all these people and can send these people to countries on 3 to 5 year work visas.
Interesting.
Something like that. I think India needs to come up also with these millions of people that not are in tech. This can help in other ways, right? So this is something for India to consider. Maybe some of these students here may go back to India and come up with ideas and companies that are more about human capital as well.
Interesting. So talking about talent and jobs, Raja, this is the last question and is to you. You got a bunch of people here just looking at starting their careers post-business school. Where are the jobs and where are they not? What would you advise them if you're sitting in their seats?
Well, I think, first of all, in the moments of high uncertainty is usually when there are high opportunity. And I think that's when the bonnet is open in the car and people are fixing the engine. That's when things can be changed. So this is when a lot of the companies will be thinking about new things and innovation and changing things and so on. So in an ironic sense, new folks coming into the organization with fresh thoughts and smart people who can work hard and you can convince the folks to do that. I think there's an opportunity for that. because I think we are in a, as you call it, a degree of uncertainty right now. A lot of the established business models and definitely supply chain patterns are in a flux, and so in the midst of that, there's clearly uncertainty, and so people are going to first hold back a little bit because they don't know what to do. At the same time, most companies like us, we're thinking, where's the opportunity? How do we succeed in this, even in this environment? And so I think that's I think the use the education that you have and the expertise and the experience that you have, put yourself deeply into the other person's shoes that you was hiring and really think through what would they want or even what they have not thought about. This is an opportunity, and while it is going to be deeply uncomfortable for a minute here as things shake out, and but there's also some opportunity here, and that's I would keep the optimistic view in that. And the other thing I would just say is, at this stage, and if I were to do this back, when I was in your stage in life, I would think much bigger. When I was I was just worried about my next paycheck, versus you could really think higher about what you could do, and then if you have a bigger plan, then you usually find your way around that. So that I would just keep your aspirations high for sure.
I'll describe what you said in mathematical terms, right? So we used to value intercept over slope.
Sure.
Now we value slope over intercept.
Yeah.
And actually the intercept has become negative in some cases,
that's fine.
because it's liability to knowing what you know. So as long as you learn fast and adapt.
Continuous learning is I know is a cliche, but 100% real.
Yeah.
One thing I might add at the close is, these guys are all in their 20s, right? And the life expectancy of your generation is going to be 100 years. So, like Raj said, think big, but also think long term.
Think long, yeah.
You're going to, the previous generation was 80 or 85, right? You guys are going to live for 100 years. So just think of that journey a little bit more as you go in. So take more risk, take a gap year, do work for a nonprofit, do different things at the age you're in now, because you still will have 60, 70 years of life to live.
Right? MR and I are just turning 40.
40, yeah. We're just...
Well, we could go on all day, but this has been a fascinating journey and experience. Thank you so much, both
Thank
of
you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.